Hello and welcome to what might very well be the most anticipated Tinto flavor of the bunch. As you can see, we're going to be talking about the Roman Empire. And yes, I did just call it the Roman Empire. I didn't call it Byzantium. I didn't call it the Eastern Roman Empire because I have opinions. And we're going to be getting into those opinions. But first, if you would like to follow my opinions throughout the development of this game that we're also very hyped about, maybe you could do me a solid and join the almost 45% of people who watch my videos that are subscribed. It would help me out. I get a sub, you get to stay informed, and we're all going home happy. Now, I will preface this video with the warning, let's say, that the start of it is going to be less about the flavor in the dev diary and a lot about grievances and my strong opinions on the naming of this state. And this argument has been done to death. Absolutely. The second longest thread, maybe actually it's third longest thread on the entirety of the Tinto forums is specifically about the naming convention of this state. And I am not joking about that. But it is important, and it is important to me, and it is important for historical accuracy to have this discussion. So if you want to skip all of that, I'm gonna do some editing, crazy I know, and I'm gonna put it up here, a timestamp to where you can skip to if this part of the video doesn't interest you, okay? And you just want to look at the flavor of the state. But without further ado, let us hop in, and I'm gonna air some grievances. So, Tinto flavor number 23. Today, after an infamous adversary, we're taking a look at the Byzantine Empire or Eastern Roman Empire, as you're free to pick the custom name you prefer for it, as it's a game rule that you can set before the game. So, here we have the game rule, and this was shared to us way back when, in the 29th of course, it was the 29th of March. It's 2 months before, it's the number 29. The number 29 there's issues. But either way, back in 29th of March last year, Yuan made this post. How about you choose for what name you prefer? Eastern Roman Empire was there, and he shared this. And at the time I was thinking, well, you know, Eastern Roman Empire is objectively a better name than Byzantium, for reasons that we'll get into. But he also put in this cheeky thing: the Greek country centered around Byzantion will be known as the Eastern Roman Empire, even though they're about 1,000 Roman miles from the city of Rome. Yay. I mean, that's all well and good, right? As he says here, slight sarcasm has always been Paradox's style. That's fine. At the end of the day, this is poking a little fun. And for a game option shared over a year ago, easily over a year before the game comes out, because obviously it's over a year ago now, having that there is fine. The fact that that is still the case now, I do actually take issue with, though. I think it is not accurate, for starters, any of this text. And I think that if the game actually releases with this text as it is right now, I find it quite insulting in a way. I don't think it should stay there at all. So I'm going to pick it apart. The Greek, right, starting from the start, the default is Byzantium. I don't think the default should be Byzantium, because it is anachronistic. It is not the name of the country as they called it themselves. And by anachronistic, I mean it wasn't a name that was given to them by anybody while they existed, right? It is a name that was given after 1453, after the empire fell entirely. So, firstly, that shouldn't be the case. Personally, I would prefer the default to be Empire of the Romans, which is basically, it's an endonym. It's what they called themselves, although obviously anglicized. Basilia ton Romaean is a name that they used for themselves, and that means Empire of the Romans. I think that's perfectly reasonable. It is something that Mayon taxes use. That's how they called that state in Mayon taxes. I think that's perfectly fine. It doesn't cause confusion. It doesn't cause issues with the, for example, creation of a formable for the Roman Empire. I think it's perfectly fine. So there, issue number 1. Issue number 2, the Greek country. Not really. They kind of not really. Did they speak Greek? Yes. Were they what we would call Greek culture? Yes. However, the Greek revival, the Hellenic revival, if you were, is a nationalist revival of the early 1800s. And it was born out of centuries of these people being oppressed by the Ottomans. That's just not the case if you go back further to the point where these guys still had their own state. They called themselves Romaioi. They called themselves Romans. Their language, they did not call Greek. They called it Romaica. Or Romaic. They called our language Roman. This idea that it was Greek is just not particularly accurate. Western Europeans who believed in the legitimacy of the Holy Roman Empire and such often called them the Greek Empire, which the Romans took great offense at. So, yeah, they're a Greek country, they're not. Centered around Byzantion. Byzantion was a little fishing village that grew into Constantinople, and it stopped being called Byzantion over 1,000 years before the start of the game. To say that this the country was centered around Byzantion is it's inaccurate. It is just frankly inaccurate, and it should not be the case. End of story. But, will be known as the Byzantine Empire, whatever. So, they offered an option, which is great. Offering game rules, I am all for game rules. I'm even for Byzantium being one of the game rules. I don't think it should be the default, but if it is one of the game rules, fine. Absolutely fine. So, the other option we have is Eastern Roman Empire. Again, Greek country. They're not Greek. They're Roman. Centered around Byzantium, obviously not. Even though they're about 1,000 Roman miles from the city of Rome, it's irrelevant. Literally irrelevant. At various points, while the Roman Empire controlled the city of Rome, the capital also wasn't in Rome. For example, the capital, while the Roman Empire owned the city of Rome, was in places like Ravenna and Mediolanum, which is now Milan. So, completely irrelevant. And again, this feels like a jab at the historically literate portion of the Paradox fanbase. Because obviously, if you're historically illiterate, then you'll be like, haha, yes, let's just poke fun at these people who disagree with the name Byzantium, because you are historically illiterate and you do not know that this state is, the Roman Empire. And again, I'm saying that out of knowledge, right? Again, there is a, how many pages now? 112 page thread about this, of arguing back and forth that I have taken part in, I'm not going to lie, and probably had a few comments deleted by the forum moderators, because sometimes I was a little bit insulting. But there are people who legitimately believe that the state here was not the Romans. They believe that this state here was not the direct continuation of the Roman Empire. And it just kind of blows my mind that you can be that ignorant, that historically illiterate, and yet still be excited about this game which wants to be historically accurate. And I mean, I've got a couple of clips that I'm going to share with you. Of course, from the EU5 official announcement show.
This is a map of 1337, but how accurate is it?
Well, Leith, I would say this is the most accurate and granular map we ever made for a grand strategy game.
Okay, so they want the most accurate map. So this should be called something a little better than Eastern Roman Empire, because at this point there is no Western Roman Empire, right? As soon as the Western Roman Empire was conquered by Odoacer in, I'm really bad with dates, 456, there was no need for Eastern to be added to the title of Roman Empire. They became the only Roman Empire, the only surviving Roman Empire, the only surviving part of the Roman Empire. The split that happened between East and West Roman Empires didn't create two separate Roman empires. It created one Roman Empire with two administrations. The East-West split wasn't some, we are now completely different countries, blah, blah, blah. That's just not how it functioned. It's not how it worked. It just wasn't the case. It was an administrative split. They all still considered, everyone in Constantinople considered the people of Rome, the people of, say, Barcelona in Spain, Romans. Everybody in Rome and Barcelona and Carthage, that, while the Romans still controlled those areas, considered the people of Constantinople and Thessalonica and Athens to be Romans. There wasn't any kind of, the Western Roman Empire is the continuation of the Roman Empire, and now the East is some different thing. That's just not how that worked. That's not how any of it worked. But I have more things to share with you, because we have this. What the actual historians think about the name. Byzantines did not call themselves Byzantine. They consistently called themselves Romans. They also had a proper name for the state, Romania. Also another great option for name, for the name options. That's Anthony Caldelis. There is also some more from him in a moment. The Byzantine Empire was in no way a separate entity from the earlier Roman Empire. The Roman Empire did not evolve into the Byzantine Empire. It simply continued its existence, even including things like 1204, right, when the Latin Empire was set up and the Romans lost the city of Constantinople. Byzantine is a convenient label which is shorthand for medieval East Roman. Byzantines refer to themselves as Romaioi, or Romans. While the majority of the inhabitants spoke Greek, and we refer to them as Byzantines, but they called themselves Romans, as they viewed their empire as the state once ruled by Augustus or Trajan. As they frickin' should. Eastern half of the Roman Empire is Byzantium. It's a name that was not given to it until the 16th century, when humanist scholars tried to find a way of identifying what remained after the collapse of Old Rome in the West. Sure. And again, I'm fine with Byzantium being an option. It is important to remember the inhabitants of the empire called themselves Romans, in Greek that's Romaioi, and saw themselves as such. I think, personally, it is important for the game to be as historically accurate as possible, and including anachronistic naming conventions for both the state, for the people, for their language, I think is inaccurate. It is simply just an inaccuracy that isn't valuable at all, because you have a lot of people who do not understand that this state is the direct continuation of the Roman Empire. And you have that situation because time and time again, you have people referring to it as the Byzantine Empire, as something completely separate. They refer to it as this, and then laymen who do not have as much of an interest in history see it, and they don't make that connection because it's never taught to them. What better way than having that connection really driven home and made absolutely certain than by calling it what it is, which is, the Roman Empire. I have another couple of things. This is essentially the same situation, right? This game option, this isn't real, by the way. This is a mock-up, a meme, if you will. What would you call the state of France? It has had multiple revolutions. It was completely conquered by the Nazis. The Vichy France was set up, but we still call France of today France, and we still consider it the same state as the France that fought England in the 100 Years' War. It's a, direct continuation. But, maybe we should just start calling it something else. The Gallo-Roman Romance country centered around Lutetia will be called as France, even though they're a few hundred miles from the Frankish homeland. It's the same situation. This is the same as this. It is a mockery, really. Aquila is the one who made that mock-up, and he also wrote to Professor Caldelis. Basically, again, this thread devolved into arguments and counter-arguments and insults and a whole bunch from, 3 or 4 incredibly historically illiterate clowns. But he wrote to him asking him, essentially, what is the correct name? Is it a legitimate thing to call the Byzantine Empire the Roman Empire? And Professor Caldelis responded back and said, "You're 100% right on this. The term Byzantine Empire and the Byzantines were made at the end of the 19th century by Western European historians who did not want to admit that this was the Roman state because they believe that Western Europe owns Roman tradition. Furthermore, anyone who uses such expressions of debate as blah, blah, blah," right? This is part of the argument part. He also sent Aquila his book in PDF form, and this is something at the start of it. "It is well known that the term Byzantium is a modern label for the Eastern Roman Empire and its people, most of whom call themselves Romans. It's less well known that this term is only the most recent in a series of invented names that the West has devised during the last 1,000 years precisely in order to avoid using any Roman label in connection with the Eastern Empire and its people. This book exposes the politics of these invented labels and the historical misunderstandings that result from them. For example, the label Byzantine obscures the difference between imperial subjects who are ethnically Roman and those who are not, making it impossible for those of us to study ethnicity, which in turn makes it impossible to study the state as an empire. Why then, am I often asked, do I still use the term Byzantium? The term is still in the internationally recognized and conventional name of a specific and fairly coherent academic discipline, Byzantine studies. I am a member of the field and address it as such with a contribution to an ongoing debate. Also, will not solve this problem by making a word taboo." So that, making the word Byzantine taboo. "It's better to improve our understanding of the historical reality that lay behind the words that we fallibly use. Once we get the substance right, we can then reassess these labels. As noted above, Republic and Empire are conventional labels for previous phases of Roman history that were not used that way by the Romans themselves, and this results in more misunderstandings. In the short term, it's possible to retain the label Byzantium as a general term for the field and civilization as a whole, for example, in the titles of our books and articles, while referring inside them to Romans and Romania." Personally, I find this quite sad, right? Basically, accepting the term Byzantium is wrong. The term Byzantium is anachronistic and should not be used. However, we have to use it because it has become the standard. It has become convention. It has become this, that, and the other. And why? Why has it become convention? Just because it has. And I guess tradition of convention overrules historical accuracy. However, this game does not need to follow that convention. It has absolutely no requirements upon it to do so, right? Byzantium is a name that can be dropped, and the game would be better for it. And as I said, there's a lot of historical illiteracy going around, and obviously some people just might not have learned about it, and that's fine. If you're not somebody who's jumping into a forum thread to argue so strongly about how, actually the Byzantines weren't Romans at all, and you're just somebody who hasn't learned about it, that's fine. I don't consider ignorance to be an insult, personally. There are many things that I'm ignorant about, and many things that everyone is ignorant about. No one can know everything. And if you are not aware, if you are ignorant of the fact that, this state is actually a direct continuation of the Romans, that is no moral failing on you. You just weren't taught it. But now we have this option, we have this ability, the game is coming out, and there is a way for Paradox to show front and center a historical reality. And I think they should take that opportunity. And I especially think that light-hearted sarcastic, slight sarcasm mocking of people who care about historical accuracy in a game that has said multiple times.
So we've been really, really working hard to get it as historically correct as we can.
They want to get the game as historically correct as you can. And this ain't it. This ain't as historically correct as you can. So perhaps it is time to become a little bit more historically correct. Now, what my suggestions are is, I think the default should be Empire of the Romans, which is an endonym, first and foremost, that is anglicized, which fits the standards of the game, right? I think option-wise, Byzantium should be there. I have no problem with that. Eastern Roman Empire should be there, no problem with that. I think Basilia ton Romaean should be there. I think Romania should be there, and I don't think it is a massive deal. I don't think it is a crazy request to have multiple options, right? I don't think it is going to be that difficult to add into the game. You know, half-hour work to add more options. Like, the code for the options is already there, so surely it wouldn't be too difficult to add more. But I do feel strongly about this. I do feel strong that this is the correct way to go. And I truly do hope that the devs consider it. Anyway, let us stop complaining about the name of the tag. I'm probably going to complain again, but we'll move on. We'll move on. Right. We'll start with the content. Oh my god, no, we're not moving on. I've read this dev diary already. And now I remember that I'm going to start ranting about something else. It's going to be it's going to be really short. I swear, it's going to be really, really short. But here we go. A once proud empire that stretched from Egypt and the Levant to Iberia and Italy. No! My brother in Christ! It stretched from Northumbria to Baghdad. It went from the Gulf of Persia, or the Persian Gulf, to the Hadrian's Wall. Actually, it went a little bit further than Hadrian's Wall. There's a wall that's even more north than that. But it went from Scotland to frickin' Iran. That's the once proud empire. That's where it stretched to. The Romans now face a decadent period that began almost 3 centuries ago. I will point out this is all being rewritten because it was picked apart and, no, it is going to get rewritten. I hope they rewrite this part, though, because this part is just objectively... I mean, it's not wrong. They owned Egypt, they owned the Levant, they owned Iberia, they owned Italy. But, God, you're being very restrictive because this empire owned frickin' England. It's a little bit stretched. That stretched a little bit further than that. Like, I don't know who wrote this, but are you a part of the people that think that this is a different empire to the Romans? To the Roman Empire? I don't understand why this is here. I said it was a short run. I'm sorry. Anyway, it now faces a decadent position that began almost 3 centuries ago. No, no. There was a period of restoration, the Komnenoi restoration, that happened during those 3 centuries. It's just wrong. This maybe should be the Romans face a struggling position ever since, you know, the Venetian betrayal in 1204, something like that. I don't know. There's a comment that I have saved that we'll go into. In an attempt to save the dying economy of the country, he's, dissolved the navy. Sadness. The theme system continued to be a shadow of what it was. The empire lost territory across all fronts. His successor, Emperor Andronikos III Palaiologos, again, Basilius. Is faced with the difficult task of safeguarding what remains of our once glorious empire. To our east, the Ottomans have started amassing a large army to wipe out our remaining holdings in Anatolia, threatening to set foot across the straits. At the same time, King Stefan Urosh IV Dushan Nemanjic eyes Thessaloniki and northern Epirus like a vulture. Meanwhile, our treasury runs dry of precious coin, and the country may yet be thrown into a perilous civil war as the family of our emperor conspires the dinner toy behind closed doors. Not really. So, here we have Basilius Andronikos III. He is 40 years old. The game starts in 1337. He currently has a son who is, I think, 5 years old. He was born in 1332. The problem, and the reason that the Roman Empire had a horrific civil war, which essentially led to them losing large parts of Thessalonica, northern Epirus, and also some Anatolian holdings, is because he died in, I think, 1441 or 1442, while his son was like 9 years old. And that is essentially the reason for the Civil War, because the son was too young to rule, and then we had Cantacuznos saying, I am now the regent, and then crowned himself as co-emperor for a time, and then his the empress on the other side being, no, I'm the regent, and civil war. He was not sick in 1337. He was not ill. He was not ailing. He was not in any danger of dying, and he was actually, there was a bit of a resurgence under his rule, under Andronikos III's rule. He died in 1441 or 1442. Again, I can't remember exactly which. I think of malaria. So he doesn't get sick and survives to the time where his son becomes an adult. No civil war. But I don't know if the game is going to actually model that situation. I don't know. Either way, things wrong with this. That's wrong. Admin points should be way higher because he was ruling over a resurgence in the empire. So admin skill, I think, should be much, much higher. Greek should be renamed to Romaioi. Language, it's not in here, should be named to Romaica. If this isn't in-game by the start, I'm sure there will be a mod to change this to the more historically accurate situation, because calling it Greek is, again, an anachronism. Constantinopolis, I love the localization of it. Fantastic. We got the amount of manpower they have, the amount of sailors they have, the tax base, how many urban locations they have, population. Love that. Yeah, Ioannis. I had some help in my comments about how to pronounce this. Ioannis. Yeah, he's very young at this time, and you just need him to live that little bit longer, and then we're golden. We're absolutely fine. But yeah, we have a couple of different maps here to show. This is terrain map mode wise. It's not showing the cities. I think you have to zoom in just a little bit more for that, which is fine. And then we also have the paper map. And look, these are zoomed to roughly the same level. Paper map not showing forts, I think, is a mistake. And the reason why, if it stays like this, it's the reason why this map will be more useful, because you can see forts, even in countries you have no vision on. Whereas that's just not the case with paper map mode. So I hope they change that and make paper map mode show forts, at least, because, this isn't actually paper map mode, is it? This is got terrain map, and you just, maybe it's just zoomed out a bit. But, couple of map screenshots, different current. Sure, but I do feel like we should show forts anyway. The Romans, which is the name I will use from now on, as it is the most historically accurate one, and I couldn't give a single shit about the community and what they call it, starts with a bunch of reforms and privileges. For starters, they have 3 government reforms. I shouldn't probably say that I don't give a shit about the community, because I imagine a large part of that is you guys. I apologize. I give a shit about you. I do. I just think that if you call this Byzantium, you're wrong. Anyway, so we have 3 reforms here, which is nice if you can get rid of bad ones and put some good ones in. But there are a bunch of problems here. Less problems, though, than when I tried to play as the Romans during my time playing the game, because just looking at the satisfaction. One of the big problems with the Romans is the horrific amounts of negative satisfaction that the estates had. So you ended up just not being able to raise any levies. Like, if your estates are all disloyal, and by disloyal I mean below 50, you won't be able to raise any levies, and then, the Ottomans come knocking and you are screwed. But we have a lot of privileges already given out at the start of the game, which makes it difficult to give out more because that costs prestige, and that's kind of painful as the Romans to give out. Most of the estate privileges are generic ones, so there's a unique one for each estate. We'll show them in later section of the Tinto flavor. They're related to the Byzantine succession crisis, a disaster that may happen to the Romans early on. It should only happen if your heir is a child when your ruler dies, and I would argue that if that happens, you probably should reload the game. It will save you so much heartache, and it is very close to the start of the game anyway. So our starting reforms, we have autocracy giving some crown power, monthly progress to aristocracy. It's not bad. It's not terrible. The opposite of aristocracy is, of course, as we all know, somewhere here, plutocracy. Opposite of aristocracy is plutocracy. Yeah, we have the starting societal values here as well, seeing where we're at, which is, is nice. As far as what I prefer centralization. I prefer innovative. I prefer humanist. I'm not so twisted on aristocracy versus plutocracy. Either way is fine. I prefer free subjects. I don't really care about either way or this way. Quality is better. Defensive is better, and I also think that the Romans probably should start more defensive than offensive, just saying. As the Romans as well, if you manage to reconquer Anatolia, then naval is probably going to be your better option. Capital economy is far, far better, and individual, this is kind of fine as well. But those are the options that you have. Yeah, moving on. We also have the theme system, or themata, temas, all these kind of different things you can call it. There is a comment as well about how this probably shouldn't be a thing because of how much land they lost in Anatolia, and the theme system kind of was not really used anymore, or nowhere near as prevalent. Having a reformed theme system, if you manage to reconquer a bunch of Anatolia, probably could be a good idea, though. So we have that, giving nobles power, allows the Thema headquarters and progress to decentralization. The Thema headquarters, giving manpower, maximum control goes down, though, unless you recruit regiments. More arguments that I've seen are that if you do manage to get to a reformed theme system, bearing that in mind, then it should probably actually do progress to centralization, as it is essentially centralized control over the area from the capital, essentially. So this could be swapped around, maybe. Either way, we also have the Critae Catholicoi, colloquially referred to as the universal justices of the Romans, come to represent the pinnacle of Roman legal authority, emerged from the reforms of Emperor Andronicus II in 1296, initially comprising 12 judges of both secular and ecclesiastical backgrounds. Later streamlined into a panel of 4, this illustrious court holds unparalleled authority with no recourse for appeal. During the years, the jurisdiction came to encompass large parts of society, conducting hearings via written complaints, including expert testimonies and clandestine deliberations, culminating in majority opinion judgments. Fantastic. Absolutely love this. Essentially, it's kind of like the US Supreme Court in a way. I mean, a lot of American judicial such things, take inspiration, let's say, from the Romans. It's called a Senate. All of the architecture of that as well. I mean, just as a lot of it harking back to the Romans, because they kind of did everything. Well, not everything. They did a lot of things right. The Romans start with state patriarchy policy. Gives the role of the patriarchate law monthly religious influence, which is going to be quite nice. They also have the pronoia system, decreasing the maximum tax that you can take from your estates, but makes infantry cost a bit less. I've also seen arguments in the comments that this should actually be cavalry maintenance cost, because the Pronoia was more about raising nobles, and they came with cavalry, essentially. Functions as a means to temporarily transfer imperial fiscal rights, such as taxes or income from various sources, to individuals or institutions. Unlike the feudal system prevalent in Europe at the time, Pronoia grants were neither hereditary nor transferable, and ultimate ownership remained with the emperor. In exchange for these privileges, the system ultimately served a purpose for the head of state to raise an army in times of need, and entailed that troops had to mostly cover their own expenses. We also have Byzantine law in their legal code, giving the clergy a bit more satisfaction, another government reform. Evolving from Roman law. Whatever. With Christian Hellenistic influence largely derives from Justinian's Corpus Juris Civilis, emphasizing ceremonial emperor roles and reflects philosophical and religious ideals. Sure, whatever. Starting works of art as well. And this is another part where I'm going to be like, hang on a moment. Hold up. Wait a second. That's not right. Theodosian walls. Unknown creator. Are you sure about that one? Unless we're going to be talking about, like, who was the architect, or who was the, several thousand individuals that lifted the blocks into place, then, I mean, the answer is either going to be the guy who commissioned it, which was, in a little bit of a way, Constantine, but also Theodosius, or it was the guy who was put in charge of the construction of the Theodosian walls, which is a guy whose name I have actually forgotten. Oh, I made a comment about it. It began with an A. Theodosian. I remember seeing it. Artemius. I knew it began with an A. Artemius could also be absolutely the one that you point at as being the creator. That would make sense to me. But yeah, no, that could be a thing. We also have the Syntagma Canonum by Matthias Blastares. We have the Songs of Amoris, unknown creator. Paris Psalter, unknown creator. Hagia Sophia, unknown creator. Is that true? I feel like it probably had a creator. Maybe not. I mean, you could put Constantine. But I guess, being the emperor who ruled the area while the building was built is probably not good enough. We have the Hagia Arene as well, the Ecclesiastica Historia, and the Apohetefictico Systema. Cool. Theodosian walls been majorly buffed since the time that we had it as creators. So if you watched Absolute Habibi's Ottoman campaign, where he went and conquered Constantinople very, very early, that might not be as possible as it was back then. We have garrison size plus 2,000, 50 extra fort defense, blocking vision from land and sea. I think this is amazing. I love that this is a modifier that you can give to things, because mods can absolutely run away with this. That could be really, really fun. Plus 2 fort level as well. So you're going to need a lot of dudes to siege this. I don't know how many dudes, but just going to be a lot of dudes. Originally built on the orders of Constantine the Great. As I said earlier, the walls elegantly guard one of Europe's most illustrious cities. Years later, when the double line of walls was erected during the reign of Theodosius II, I also said that, the city's defense became somewhat of a legend, being held in high regard and even considered impregnable. The Romans also have a bunch of advances. They're going to focus on the early game historical ones, as they also unlock some unique Roman units. We have the Heart of Orthodoxy. It lies at the heart of a vibrant and old faith. We're proudly the heads of Orthodoxy, holders of the ecumenical patriarch of our empire, and defenders of Christendom against heathen enemies, giving tolerance of the true faith. We have late cataphracts. Despite the changes introduced by gunpowder and the evolution of warfare, We can always rely on the tactics that were refined by our forefathers centuries ago. I don't know, since centuries, whatever. It's again really quite difficult to see what it is that we're seeing here, but combat power seems quite high at 4. I think is it strength damage taken and the morale damage done. I think might be the things that the cataphractoi get that are a little different. High combat speed, high initiative, high movement speed, flanking ability there. I'm not sure, versus regular cavalry. I don't know how different these are, but I think these are the two big changes here. So they seem pretty strong. They make up the elite of our cavalry units armed with a short lance named a contos, and covered in scale armor, these troops strike fear at the heart of our enemies. A whirlwind of steel in the form of an unstoppable wave of horsemen delivers the killing blow to all those who seek to trample our people. The fact is that there is only 50 of them, though, right? So that is the... I assume they get upgraded with later versions when you go up in eras, and this number will be larger, I would hope. But yeah, they're quite small. We also have Acritai, which is another one that is very Anatolian in nature and maybe shouldn't be something that you can hire at the start of the game unless you go and reconquer a bit of Anatolia. Proud defenders of our borders against external threats, these light troops are given lands to nurture and protect. Acritai are most adept at defensive warfare, especially against cavalry, and often operate as the first response against external threats. They get a little bit of morale damage taken. Other than that, again, it's very difficult to see what's going on there. Acritai rose to prominence as defenders of Anatolia. Again, we don't own much of Anatolia anymore. Against eastern threats that the Empire faced, the soldiers were given grants with a theme system to cultivate and protect, and means to provide them with a reward and reason to defend our homeland. We have Shield of the West. Kind of sounds a little weird. Stand between Europe and a sea of heathens as the proud protectors and shield against foreign threats. Did they see themselves as a shield for the rest of Europe? I don't think so, honestly. Our sword will forever be in defense against those who seek to uproot our ways of faith, powerful strike against those who desire the end of our traditions. I mean, Shield of the West, they're protecting the guys behind the shield. Such as the Serbians who went and conquered a bunch from them. They had shields. Oh, they were doing full frickin' testudo, right? They had shields all around them. Shield to the north, shield to the west, shield to the they were surrounded by bastards, essentially. It allows you to have extensive conscription, which is a cabinet action, giving you extra manpower and army reinforcement costs. So during times of war, this is going to be very useful. Obviously, it's a cabinet action. You don't have a whole infinite number of cabinet members, so opportunity cost is there for sure. During times of war and where their faith is at risk, as we struggle to protect what is holy, it falls upon our soldiers to call all able-bodied pious men to serve and donate their dues against our heathen foes. We have Poikilia, giving some monthly prestige in the Age of Renaissance. Byzantine culture has taken Europe by storm. Elegantly displayed is a vast array of hues, the latest way of expressing a symphony of colours and elements in art and architecture. We also have Expand the Varangian Guard, giving number of Varangian units +4. I think this might be one of the first times that we have seen any kind of limit on the maximum number of a certain type of unit. I'm all for this. I think it's a good thing to have. Having some special units, you can only have a certain amount of them, especially if they're really, really good. I'm all for it. Get my Artificer units, or if we're talking about vanilla EU4, get my, Carolians, or get my Janissaries, or all the other types that you can get. Varangians have served our country for centuries with distinguished honor and unwavering faith. By expanding their ranks, will only further secure our stability and protection of the Romans. As well, I will point out, Varangian Guard in reality by this period was actually quite heavily made up of Englishmen. There was a huge number of Anglo-Saxons, let's say, that went to the Roman Empire after the conquest of William the Bastard in 1066. And So yeah, those are, a lot of the Anglo-Saxons there fled to the Roman Empire, which I think is kind of cool. Either way, the Varangians, morale damage done 20%, strength damage done 20%. The rest looks about normal from what I can see, but, these are pretty good modifiers to have. Powerful warriors that originally hailed from northern Viking lands, and I'd say at this point having some mention of the Anglo-Saxons might be nice. The select few ferocious soldiers make up the core of the royal guard, armed with axes and shields. They've often been described as Pelekiforoi Barbaroi, axe-wielding barbarians. We have the City Taker in the Age of Discovery. The tradition of deploying and refining the most powerful and impressive siege engines is an aspect of our warfare that we are intimately familiar with. By adopting and refining our gunpowder into our designs, our cannons will dominate our foes. So we have the modernized Helepolis, giving modifiers. Sure. Served many Roman emperors in the past. With the introduction of gunpowder and the advent of new siege mechanics and of warfare, City Taker artillery is now embraced in its new deadly form. Sweet. Alright. Narrative content for the Romans. As previously mentioned, a succession crisis is latent in the country. No, it's not. I disagree. I, once again, will point out that it would not have happened had, Andronikos' son been an adult when Andronikos decided to die. 1341. I just heavily think that if we just get that situation, if we have Andronikos living, and I am also heavily against the idea of scripting Andronikos' death, because he did not die of any ailment that he had in 1337. It was, I'm pretty sure it was malaria, but I'm going to have a look. Andronikos the Third. Andronikos the Third, Palaiologos. Is this the right guy? 1341, yes. Death. Life, no. Reign, no. Succession, legacy. Malaria, yeah. So, he didn't have malaria in 1337. It wasn't a thing. But he did, have a little bit of a, resurgence in the Roman state. Or he led that resurgence. So, I don't know. It is what it is, I guess. Anyway, the Roman Civil War of 1341-47 allowed King Stefan Dusan of Serbia to occupy Macedonia and proclaim himself emperor, the Bulgarians to recover some borderlands and seriously debilitate the country, making it easier for the Ottomans to gain a foothold across the Sea of Marmara from Gallipoli. So they're portraying the latent crisis and the general state of decay in the country with some starting privileges, plus some starting inflation, about 10% inflation, low funds, they're at like minus 800 ducats, low stability, if I remember correctly, they're at 1 stability. Which, I don't know, it just feels like a little bit of ahistorical punishment for playing the Romans because, well, they died, and clearly there was a reason for that, so we're going to just pile on all of these things that really kind of shouldn't have been there, is what it feels like. Anyway, we have consolidated corruption of the elites, entrenched members of the upper classes, across our domain have long since snuck their claws into the treasury of courts, securing lenient positions and propagating stagnant ambience of corruption. So your estate satisfaction equilibrium goes down, maximum taxes go down, army morale goes down. Fun. Corruption of the wealthy. We lose more estate satisfaction, lose more taxes, lose 10% trade capacity, which is obviously the most painful thing there. Corruption of the faith. More estate satisfaction, taxes for the clergy, monthly religious influence. So, you are the head of the Orthodox faith. You get that plus 0.1. Well, that's 0.1's gone now. And even the common people are corrupted, again giving estate satisfaction, equilibrium, and less taxes from the peasants. Why? Anyway. Situation will also spawn in your neighborhood a couple of months after the game starts, though we'll talk about more in detail next Friday. The Turkish threat has risen. Also, this button gives you minus 20 stability, or it did before. So, yay. Yeah, so we'll talk about this one more next Friday when we get the Tinto flavor on the Ottomans, I think. Very likely that disaster may end up triggering early after the start of the game if you're not careful enough. again, it should only really fire if your heir is a child when you die, in my opinion. Years of mismanagement, court intrigue, and unstable rule have wrought the seeds of our downfall. Like the shades of the dusk, many prominent individuals with imperial aspirations have gathered in a petty attempt to prop Konstantinos Palaiologos as the rightful ruler of the Roman Empire. So bring me head on a pike probably could be changed to blind and castrate him or something along those lines. But either way. So succession crisis, you lose crown power, you lose even more estate satisfaction. Your legitimacy actually starts going up, which is fine, I guess. Pretender rebel growth goes up, and to stop it, you need to have no active rebels as pretenders. You need to have more than 30 stab. You have to have more than 55 legitimacy. Or the pretender needs to be granted the throne. Or you need to have the pretender has died or left the court, and you need to not be in civil war. I hope that this leads to this. Either way. We have succession crisis here. Between Andronikos III. I mean, it's... Like, this was clearly done with console commands, because it shouldn't be Andronikos at this point. But this is the panel that you get for succession crisis. So you can have your different options for how you want to fix it. Pretty sure this is Kantokouzenos as well. Might be wrong on that. It's something that they internally call a semi-generic disaster. It means while it uses all the text, panels, etc. of the generic succession crisis disaster, some countries have unique triggers, events, and content attached to it, so the player can experience similar but a different crisis. The Roman succession crisis is one of those, therefore. Independent of whether the player succeeds or not in defeating the succession crisis, and not weakening much in the process, Romans have a bunch of dynamic historical events, such as Hesychasm. Theological matters have always gripped our people. As a nation that sees itself as the pride of the Orthodox faith, we've proven time and again the validity of our beliefs in search of the divine, and more stuff there. So you can have a scholarly debate if you so desire, or not tolerate the insolence of Barlaam of Seminara, or you can kill him. Decline of the Palaiologos Renaissance. While in the past many great artists flocked into our court in a phenomenon that is called the Palaiologos Renaissance, in recent years there's been a decline where great men choose to join other courts instead of ours. Perhaps Emperor Andronikos should invest in stopping this decline. Yeah, historically, book option, you don't have any money. So, painful. Reforming the universal judges of the Romans. Finally, they get it the fuck right. Although our Supreme Court has seen recent reforms under previous rulers, a recent scandal has come to light. 3 of the 4 judges have been accused of being corrupt, ignoring the good of the nation to pursue their interests. Emperor Andronikos has heard of this news and is planning to get rid of any form of corruption in the Supreme Court. Fantastic. Purge the bastards. And then you'll get the reformed Kritai Catholikoi, giving crown power, cabinet seats, and state power from cabinet position a little bit. Very nice. We also have the Acritic songs. Many frontiersmen known as Acritai fought to protect Anatolia from the Arabian invaders. It's led to many great poems and many great heroes being produced in Greek literature, such as Digenes Acritas. Cool, good for him. We also have the Songs of Amoris, another bit of artwork there. We also have Konstantinos Armenopoulos. I pronounced that horribly. Either way. We have the Brilliant Center of Learning. The reason that this option is green is because of a trait, I guess, that the Andronicus, or whoever is the ruler when this event was fired, has. You get some special options, the same as in EU4, for example. We have the also infamously Gemistos Plethon. He preaches about Romans returning to the age of Hellenism, although he's shown prominence that clerics are opposed to his ideas. He's one of the most renowned Roman scholars. He advocated for the revival of Greek scholarship in Western Europe and wrote many manuscripts, many focusing on the revival of Hellenism and rejecting Roman law. So you can either let him stay in court, which is what happened, and he has the ability to attempt to revive Hellenism, as in the pagan faith, Hellenism, Zeus, and all that kind of stuff. Or you can kill him, I guess. There's also alt historical events, one of the few exceptions they make in the game to include some plausible content in case the Romans avoid its decadence. Again, this I disagree with calling it decadence, because that's like, I'm not calling Pavia this, but the idea that also, I don't know why my webcam turned off. The idea that the Roman Empire fell due to decadence is a very, like, right-wing talking point, and I think that maybe shouldn't be something that is pushed. Also, I know exactly why my webcam turned off. I apologize. I have it set to K, which is the same as what I use to pause videos. So for the entirety of this, I haven't had one on, so I apologize for that. You couldn't see my face. There's nothing much there to see anyway. So there is, obviously, next week, the steps. We have Golden Horde, Islam, the 4th behind-the-scenes video, and then we have the Ottomans and the Rise of Turk scenario. Cool. Looking forward to that, but I have some comments to go through. Why around Byzantium and not around Constantinople? Had the new name failed to take after a millennium? So they're taking the name from the province where Constantinople is located. The province is called Thrace, or should be. The name Byzantion, I mean, I guess I'm going back into, you know, complain mode. The name Byzantion wasn't used for a long-ass time. The province should not be called Byzantion, because the province was never called Byzantion at any point, ever. It was Thrace. Like, it was just Thrace. So, yeah, no. And it makes for a more direct connection to where Byzantium comes from. So if you have to essentially lie to your user base, to your fans, to the people playing the game, about, you know, why you're using this name, because it is a lie. It just is. I'm sorry. I hate to say it like this, but it is just a lie, right? We're going to lie and say that this polity should be called Byzantium, and the way that we're going to, you know, lie in, where is it? This thing, or in, I mean, it's at the top of the page, isn't it? Not this one. Oh my god, find it here. This part, if we're going to lie about this and, like, justify our use of these terms, but just so that you can just, like, I don't know, it's so dumb. Like, why? I don't understand it. I don't understand why you need to, you know, take the piss out of the people in your fan base that are historically literate. Like, fucking stop. Like, seriously. I don't get it. There's no need for this. This is insulting bullshit. Basilius is now what they're going to start using, or Basilius, I guess. Seems to be a graphical glitch in the Dardanelles. The land is connecting to other land. There is a fix already planned for that. We saw already the societal values at the start of the game. As for what those graphics mean, blue bars are the maximum values. This is where the country has the ability to reach up to. The arrows suggest the momentum towards the direction, and the central boxes give the current value. So they're currently at 0.19 towards decentralization, and they can get to this value maximally. And then if you hover over it, you can see where you're at, which is fine, I guess. Starting diplomatic situation for the Roman Empire. They start with cores on all of these lands. If they reconquer it, they automatically become cores, which is nice. There's an event that gives a CB to recover Achaia as well, which is this area here. The rest is mechanic driven, so go make your own claims, cores, claims, and what have you. What does it mean in terms of gameplay for having, you know, these as claims? If recovered, they automatically get core status, which is nice. Is there any content for the reconquest of Anatolia? There are a couple of events regarding it. Yes. Nice. Is there an event for Thessaloniki to break away during under the control of the Zealots? Could be fun to play. Yes, there is that. As the succession crisis rages on in the Roman Empire, the Dinotoi in Thessaloniki has been exploiting the Agroikoi. It's meant to many of them to take a stance in the succession crisis. Should we not manage to pacify the unrest, we have to fight yet another civil war. How delightful. we get a look at how Hellenism could be revived by Plethon. So it doesn't have its own developed mechanics as of now. It uses the same as the folk pagan religions. It's mostly a flavor thing. The religion is created, and pops and characters can start to be Hellenic. So you can use that as the basis, different base mechanics for religious management. Something they could potentially deepen in the future, but since it's highly ahistorical, just like the name Byzantium, it was super low priority for us, unlike the name Byzantium, more than the historical reference to Gemistos Plethon. What succession law do they have? It is a generic cognatic primogenitor. So there we have all of that. Apparently, legally male is because there is a example of a woman who was pronounced legally male in Hungary. So they have that character in the game, so this modifier had to be in the game. Apparently, some polls also mentioned a woman named Jadwiga, who was king of Poland, because apparently the translation of what queen was something like wife of king, so you couldn't really be crowned wife of king if there's no king, so you'd be crowned king, and that's why there's a woman that was king. So it's not really the same thing, but, you know, there's that there anyway. Is it possible that the consolidated corruption estate privileges could be gained by any decaying empire rather than being unique to the Romans? It's not a bad idea, though consider attaching it to the decline of empire disaster somehow. I think that's fantastic. Good change there. Do we have any idea what the population of the Romans land in Europe versus the population they've lost in Anatolia? And we have this map being shown of the Greek. Again, I think it should be changed to Romaioi culture is. So if you select Romaioi, Greek, in the culture map mode, and then hover over it in the culture tab, you can see that there are 3.6 million pops in the world of that culture, and how they are spread around, which is really cool. And then if you look at the culture group, you can also see that Pontic is a part of that, and where the Ponts are in the world. Players will be able to know where it's interesting for them to expand or improve their diplomatic and cultural influence without having to know beforehand which pops or cultures link to each other. Cool. It's something that we have in Imperata. It's really fun, really cool. I like the system. How much territory does the extensive conscription cabinet action cover, or is it countrywide? The reinforcement cost does seem to imply that, but I was under the impression that all cabinet actions had a smaller territorial scope. So this one is set to country level. It's a nice bonus, but I remind you, if you use the cabinet action on this, you won't be able to use it on other things, like increasing control in a province, changing a societal value, or integrating newly conquered province. The use of cabinet actions is strategic, therefore. I wonder as well, can you use more than one cabinet action on it? Because it seems like it could be quite nice. Where is it? I'm blanking out. I think I've not found it. Where is it? Yeah. If you can have more than one cabinet member giving you manpower and army reinforcement cost, that would be, like, ridiculously powerful. Like, oh, I'm in a player death war, let me just do this. Would be, you know, essentially very useful. But yeah, then you're not using it on other things, so. Opportunity cost. Any chance that an engineer named Orban might show up? Yes, and we have the guns of Shabo Orban. Apparently Shabo means something weird and dodgy and awful, so he changed it. Randomly selected surname is unintentional, very funny, but understandably we don't know his family name if he had one at all. But since we don't know his name, what about using one of the monikers or profession name, something like, I can't pronounce that, or I'm not even going to try, or Magyar Orban, Orban the Hungarian. So now his name is changed to Magyar Orban, and also Bro got made younger as fuck. Like, our adolescent Magyar Orban versus our courtier Shabo Orban. Yeah, but he got his name changed, so the Hungarian cannon guy who gave the cannon to the Ottomans in order to, you know, blow open the walls, the Theodosian walls, can, you know, maybe, you know, he offered his service to the, you know, Constantine the 11th, but was turned down. Maybe in this game you won't turn him down. That might be an idea. So this is, I don't really care about the question, but what I do care about is the new UI here that we're seeing for buildings and what they're going to look like, because this panel looks so much better than the one that we are used to in you know, in all of the videos and such that we have seen so far. I am a big fan of the upgrade. So Generalist, Flurry, and I don't know who other is one of the content creators that was invited back to play the game again to give UI feedback, are doing a fantastic job so far, because this is awesome looking. Absolutely fantastic. But also these are the buildings that the Romans have at the start of the game, which is cool. Can we expect more Eastern European Orthodox aesthetics by the time of release, like less Western courtroom, crown buildings on the map, etc.? The only way to do the Eastern Roman aesthetics justice would be to fully and properly do it fully and properly to a level that truly immerses the player, rather than reactively inserting a crown here and an illustration there. But they haven't scheduled that level of work before release. It's something that they hope to do sooner rather than later, so I would expect one of the first DLCs for the game to be full-on Roman flavor. I would be very happy with that, of course. Why, with the Theodosian walls, can the capital still fall so easily? And this is a screenshot, I believe, from Absolute Habibi's video where he conquers Constantinople. It's a balance issue, and they're buffed compared to the one that they provided to influencers. And then finally, Face coming in with a really good amount of things here. I'm not really sure what consistent decadent period this refers to in the country description. I suppose it could be poorly worded and intended that the word was decline rather than decadent period, but still an inaccurate view of what happened between 1000 and 1300 AD. They had a major 100-year resurgence in the middle of those 3 centuries with the Comnenian Restoration. I think it would be better description if it briefly mentioned the Fourth Crusade, led up to the troubles that Byzantium faces now, for example. Pavi agreeing here. I think the content designer that wrote it was thinking more of the shock at the end of the Macedonian dynasty and the defeat at Manzikert, changing now to this, which is closer to the game start. Once proud empire that stretched from still wrong. Still wrong. You see, I don't know why you still got it wrong. The Romans now face a period of almost inexorable decline caused by the shock of the Fourth Crusade, even after the recovery of Constantinople by the Palaiologos. This part, fine. This part, still trash. I'm not going to mince words, it's fucking terrible. Transliteration of Greek words that are used in game right now are totally inconsistent with each other. Kleros, Constantinopolis, and I can't pronounce that, are example inconsistent with each other, and the Greek words used in the interface should really be given consistent standard of writing, same as any other language, in a non-Latin alphabet represented in game. If you're going to use accent marks, and I think you should, for words in the UI and location names, you should use them in Greek character names as well. So one of the internal Greek devs will make a pass, although please note for the content, not flavor naming, like that of flavor names, we favor terms adapted in English over endonyms. I mean, adapted in English is fine, but maybe you could have an endonym adapted into English, like Empire of the fucking Romans. Theme system over themata, although he's just corrected it from thema to thema. Okay, but themata sounds cooler, so you should probably use that. And then again, going into, you know, the Akriti but not being a thing because, you know, they lost Anatolia, and he's thinking about tweaks to it. Anyway, that's the video, and it is a long one. I suppose it's probably because I spent about half an hour complaining at the start about the naming convention of the Empire. I apologize for that. If you skipped that, I mean, I don't blame you. I don't blame you. But either way, I want to thank you all very much for watching. I hope you enjoyed this video. My throat now hurts. I think I'm getting sick, or I just was rather animated today. I don't know. Either way, thank you very much for watching. Again, if you want to help me out, you can subscribe to the channel. I will be back on probably Tuesday, with you know, changes to the step. It should be a fun one, and yeah, we'll look forward to that. So, thank you all very much for watching, and I will see you then. Toodaloo, bye-bye, bye-bye, bye-bye.